Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of RFPODlooza, a podcast by and for advertising people. This week, we visit to the great city of Salt Lake in the wonderful state of Utah and visit with Andrew Howlett, CEO of the Struck Agency, a small agency with a big impact. For years, Struck has been the agency of record for Utah travel and tourism and is the agency behind that great campaign, Utah Life Elevated. And I can't neglect to mention that campaign, that wonderful campaign, is a public sector campaign. Andrew and his staff have a great sense of who they are and where they're going. So let's get on with it and meet with Andrew. Okay, so here we are with CEO Andrew Howlett of the Struck Agency in Great Salt Lake City, Utah. And Andrew, tell us a little bit about how you became involved with Struck.
Good to be here, Roger. Thanks for the invite.
No problem.
Excited to have this conversation. So, I've been in the agency world for a little over 20 years. I founded, ran, and sold an agency called Rain that was very tech and innovation focused. I sold that in 2018, and through a very fortuitous and great sequence of events, I was able to join Struck in 2019. And I was able to buy out some of the previous founders, owners, and took over as CEO. Struck from day one has been a heavily creative and creatively led agency and continues to be that today. The last few years, though, has really we've had to take a look, and that was one of the first things that I did when I joined was let's take a look at the story. What is it? What are we telling? And I think as importantly, probably actually more importantly, what should we not be telling? Because as you and I both know, at the size we are, we're not that big. We're a small agency by comparison to others. To be a generalist is very difficult to compete. And so over the last couple of years, we've really focused in on sort of our best work. And I dove in and said, where do we work? Where do we do well? We really work with businesses that are ready to, in a kind of a transformative mode. They're at a time where they're ready to do something different. They need to do something different. And then we focused in on entertainment, hospitality, tourism, and biotech. So those are the focuses we've done. And then we also set up a separate business. It's not a separate business on a P&L, but it's a separate business that is Structure, which is we do a lot of physical space design. So not architects, we're not interior designers. We do inspiring and engaging spaces for kind of all shapes and sizes of types of businesses, all the way from like novelty retail to large corporate buildings and such. We're working on something right now for one of the largest movie studios in the world. It'll be a really cool it'll marry our physical space design piece we're doing and very unique and interesting storytelling with then a digital interface where people can experience it there as well.
Before we get into more specifics about Struck, I couldn't help but ask the question. When most people think of advertising meccas, they think of New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. But here you have a highly creative shop, and I know there are other creative shops in Salt Lake City. Tell me a little bit about the ad environment in Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake and Utah, just in general, is I would say, a little under recognized for the creative and the creativity that Utah has. And so, you look at it, I mean, here's a fun fact for you, Roger. More pianos in the state of Utah per capita than any other state in the country. More kids taking dance classes than any other state in the country. So there's this creative undertone here that is just sort of part of the culture and part of the everyday that is Utah. As you know, that those types of creative outlets lends to more creativity just in other ways. So we have some really great programs in the state that have really helped in terms of like BYU, Brigham Young University, has what they set up, it's probably 15, 20 years ago. It's called the Ad Lab, that is widely regarded as one of the best college-run sort of quote-unquote agencies around. And they are very highly, if you get into the Ad Lab, you've got your pick of agency you want to go to sort of anywhere in the country or maybe even the world for that matter. And then also we benefit very greatly from people coming. I mean, I've got multiple employees who tell the story of moved here came here to ski and stayed because they loved it and they want to
Great.
stay here. And so we benefited from a lot of transplants coming from those meccas and bringing their expertise.
One thing, as I was browsing around your site, which is very impressive, you've written a manifesto about your thoughts on advertising. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so where Struck really when I started to look at what Struck really does and does well, I looked at it's all about the experiences. The manifesto really talks about the role that experience transformation plays in the bigger ecosystem of business transformation, which is your McKinsey's, it's your Deloitte's, it's all those big, management consultants. So where Struck really plays and what I, posit is that the experience transformation is as important as those other two. I'm not saying it's more important. I'm not saying it's less important. I'm saying it's as important. And those three sort of circles, those three pillars
Mm.
are what build a successful business. And if you can get all three of those right, you are in a position for success. You ever watch the TV show Bar Rescue? So it's a very interesting show where it's basically what you'd expect. There's a gentleman who is very well respected in that sort of bar space.
Okay.
He goes into these failing bars and he effectively in about 48, 72 hours, you don't know exactly what the total timeline is, but it seems like it's 3 days,
Yeah.
uh, closes it down and opens it back up. And the epiphany that I had was every single one he goes into, in that short amount of time, he addresses the business circle, he addresses the digital circle, and he addresses the experience circle. Every single time. There's not a single time where he goes in and says, oh, we're going to change your brand and your look and feel inside and everything else stays the same. He goes in on the business side, changes their menu. He changes the way that they flow, their products or services. He changes their food offerings. He changes on all these things. He changes their pricing, all the stuff you expect of a management consultant. Then he goes in, he always brings in some digital tools and says, look, we're going to update the way that you process and the way that you need to reorder
Sure.
and your stock and that. And then on the experience side, always changes the experience, wants it to be something that is more unique or stands out, or even just sometimes distances itself from its previous, self. Anyway, it was just a very interesting for me. It was a microcosm of this sort of business, digital, and experience all working together and all, if you went in there and did just one or two of those three, yeah, there might be an uplift, but is it going to be really the lift that it needs? No.
So, are you trying to position yourself somewhere as a hybrid ad agency, marketing agency, management consulting firm, or is it you strictly want to be an advertising and marketing communications firm, or known as that?
We want to be a advertising, creative, marketing firm, and we want to work closely with the management consultants. We want to work closely with those who are doing the digital transformation. And our most successful clients we've seen is where we have been able to work very closely with those other two circles.
Great, great, great. That's a good answer. I'm glad you said that because I've known a lot of agencies over the years tried to get into management consultant, and from the other side, management consultants tried to become agencies, and it never worked. So
Right.
you know who you are, and you're very adamant about what you stand for, and that's a great thing. You talk about the digital transformation, and that's happened over the last 20 years, even before you were at Struck. How has it affected your business?
There was a period of time where there was an over-indexing on the digital transformation, which I think creative agencies paid a bit of a price for. And to be honest, I get it because there was a lot of catch up on the digital side.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second. And I'm of the belief, and I have other people that I've worked with in the agency that are the same belief, that while digital has brought a lot of great things to marketing and to life for that matter, that it's sort of dumbed down the advertising. The advertising industry or the advertising product of what we do. You don't see those beautiful, great print ads anymore. Everything's a 728 by 90 banner or 300 by 250. And as a consequence of that, I think we've become less brand oriented and more direct marketing oriented, trying to get clicks.
I think you're spot on. You know, prior to really digital marketing being able to target somebody, you can target down to the number of kids somebody has and their location and their whether they like Mexican food or Thai food or burgers. You can get so specific. So what's happened is, in my opinion, is the days of creating something so big and magnificent and amazing and beautiful and inspiring to capture all the eyeballs you possibly can, so that then that subset that you were actually targeting would see it, are largely gone. Now, they still happen from time to time, of course, and there's big sort of brand activations or big brand experiences that do happen still. So now it's all about, okay, how do we create something that can speak to that one specific group?
Your agency has done some wonderful campaigns, particularly for the state of Utah and some ski areas. I'd love to hear about some of your favorite campaigns.
Right, yeah. One of the things that we're very well known for is for 15, 17 years, we've been the AOR for the state of Utah Travel and Tourism. So if you've ever seen the Life Elevated, or more recently, and quite frankly, more successful, the Mighty Five, that was struck. And the Mighty Five really came from some insights that we were able to get through some research that showed when people would see a picture of Bryce Canyon or Arches National Park, or these different parks that are in Utah, Monument Valley, there was a smattering of, oh, that's in Arizona, or that's Colorado, or that's Nevada, or that's New Mexico. It was not seen as Utah. And so using that insight, we were able to see and identify that there was an opportunity to create this. We've got 5 national parks here in Utah, and we created what was called the Mighty Five, which was similar to sort of the big 5 in Africa. Those are the ones you go to Africa to try and see those big 5 animals. So leveraging a little bit of that insight and that idea, we created the Mighty Five, which has been, to say wildly successful would be a complete understatement. Utah has been the #1 performing tourism agency, group in the country for, I think, the last 10 years because of really that. We created a bucket list for people. We said, hey, here's what you need to do. Come to Utah and experience all these things. There's actually multiple articles out there where literally says we did our job too well, because now there's wait lines at some of the, Zion National Park has a wait to get in. Arches has a wait.
Nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded.
One other really fun one, and that people know us for, is we've done a lot of work in the ski industry, ski and snowboard industry. And Snowbird, who's been a long-time client of ours, almost every ski ad you see is, somebody skiing in deep powder, or it's a family skiing down the hill together. Well, one of our creative team was looking online one day and was reading reviews for Snowbird. And these were real reviews. Was too deep. Powder was too deep. 1 star. Too much terrain. Couldn't ski it all in one day. 1 star. The lift lines were, a little short. I didn't have time to catch my breath in between rides. I mean, stuff like that. And so and look, kudos to a great client who leaned into this. We created the 1-star campaign, which really said, hey, you know what? You want to go do those other things? Fine, go to those other resorts. But you want steep and deep? You want, this kind of experience? Snowbird is for you. And again, it really changed their business, and it took on almost a cult-like following, because it turned into this thing where people wanted to come to Snowbird to say, I skied that 1-star, experience. And that's another favorite from the years.
And one of your other areas of specific interest is biotech. Can you tell me something about, or anything about, some campaigns you've done successfully in the biotech space?
Yeah, so most of the work we do with biotech is these biotech companies are, again, they're in a transformational space. They're at a time where they're going from maybe a stealth mode to launching to the public, or they're needing to raise a Series A or B or C, or they're going to go public or sell to a company. So for the last 3 or 4 years, we've had a tremendous body of work in the biotech space. I think we're up to around 30 biotech businesses that we've rebranded, in some cases renamed, done web experiences for them to tell their story more clearly. So we haven't done as much on the campaign side as we have on the storytelling of their own properties and their own properties, such that their potential employees see that and engage with that and are interested and want to be there, or of course potential funding sources. And so because that's oftentimes what they're looking for is that next round of funding. And we've quickly become known as the creative agency for the biotech space, and that's a great place to be. I'm not letting us sit back on our laurels. If anything, we're actually doubling down and really going to go after that in a more meaningful way. And one thing I will say about the biotech work, advertising is full of lots of different mixed experiences on the advertising side, on the agency side. One day we're selling chips, another day we might be selling beer or spirits. We might be selling, a state of Utah, which is great. And all these things are important for these businesses. But in this case, and something that we talk a lot about here at Struck is, not often do we get the chance to help cure cancer.
You're sort of greasing the skids for them to be able to progress more rapidly in many ways. Absolutely. I would think. What role do RFPs play in your new business development process?
Well, again, working like with RFPODalooza, there's stuff come across our purview that we had no clue was even out there. And so that gives us that opportunity. Number one, just to see it, because sometimes you can't participate in what you don't know about.
Sure.
So number one, it's just seeing what is out there. Then two, it also gives us the opportunity to say, is this the right fit for us? Does this fit who we are? Does this fit, what we want to focus on and what we're good at? And then again, our step and our approach has been different. Is we're not a shotgun. We're going to reply to everything. It's just we just don't have the bandwidth to do that. We're going to try to connect with specific ones that we know we have a really good opportunity with because it does fit our core capabilities and competencies. And then we want to have conversations with those people. We want to try and connect with them in a way to say, what is it you're really wanting to do? How can we best drive value for you? And as you know better than anybody, both being on the industry side as well as now doing what you do, some RFPs are so thoughtfully put together and well put together, and others are copy paste from something else that they found maybe on the internet. Who knows?
Sure. So
it's important to really understand what we're getting and what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And then react in a way that is appropriate.
That's interesting. With your focus on 4 or 5 different categories or industries, it allows you, I think, to compete for RFPs, in those industries all over the United States. As if you were just a plain vanilla agency, it would be difficult for you to compete for something in New York, for example. Does that make sense?
100%. All of our biotech clients to date are in either Massachusetts or California. Okay. We don't have a single biotech client in Utah yet. And yet Utah actually has a healthy, thriving life sciences biotech community, which we're working to get more involved in. But yeah, they don't care where we're located.
Well, they all like to ski, and they all like to ski and schedule meetings in Salt Lake City in February. But no,
and even like our experience in the entertainment industry on the structure side.
Yep.
People know us. People don't care where we're located because we have our body of work is all there.
Sure.
And they get to see that. And so we don't have to compete in a way where we say, oh gosh, this is our second entertainment project ever. No, we know the industry. We know what you're trying to accomplish, and we can step in on day one and have a really good understanding, if not an advanced understanding, of overall objectives, landscape, and such.
Here's a question I like to ask to anybody that I meet in our industry, be it advertising or marketing communications, because I just think it's interesting how different people have different perspectives on it. But how would you define a brand?
Great question. So for me, a brand is any interaction that an end consumer has with that company, whether it be physical, digital, or interpersonal. So it can be a customer service experience. It can be a package design. It could be, their website, their mobile app, kind of you name it. So it's any experience where they have with that brand that leaves them with that emotion, which of course sometimes is a negative emotion, and other times hopefully is a more positive emotion. Or maybe worst of all is no emotion at all, because that means you didn't leave any lasting memory.
Sure, no, it's all about emotions. I teach a course in advertising, and I always talk about the emotional connection, and I'm sure, obviously, just looking at your advertising, we can see the emotional connection.
Yeah. So that's my definition of brand.
So thank you so much, Andrew. You really gave us an interesting picture of your agency and the industry in general. It's been a pleasure having you on our podcast.
Thank you, Roger. Appreciate it. Feeling is mutual, and appreciate what you're doing, and look forward to more conversations in the future.
Okay, you take care.